At the end of this event, it was looking like the NWO was coming apart at the seams, rapidly eroding, fracturing, dissolving in front of our very eyes. Randy Savage was like, I don't need you guys. I'm going to go out on my own, down the only road I've ever known, unjustifiably a position I'd rather not be in, but the cream will rise to the top. Dig it. Okay, terrible Randy Savage impression. I do apologize. But as for the NWO, they could take one of two paths, have one of two plans. Plan A, dissolve the goddamn group after Starrcade 1997. Boy, they really screwed up that goddamn shit, didn't they? All that build for Sting versus Hogan, and they fucked it up and continued to fuck it up, and kept fucking up and fucking up and fucking up. Speaking of fucking up, if you don't have a plan B, then you're really fucked in more ways than one. And plan B was basically to create more incarnations of the NWO, have a fractured relationship, NWO Black and White and NWO Wolfpack, and then reform them in 1999, to the point we had the finger poke of doom, and then people really stopped caring, and then by the time they did the final incarnation of the NWO in WCW, that is, people really didn't fucking care, because you had Jeff fucking Jarrett as part of it. Jeff Jarrett killing more careers and killing more companies than ever before. But WCW, they kept trying to do everything with the NWO to the point it was one of the leading factors that killed the company outside of the corporate merger. I'm John Retton with the Retro View of WCW Spring Stampede 1997 at the Tupelo Coliseum in Tupelo, Mississippi. Yet there was no Tupelo concession stand brawl. More in the pity. There's a bit of history in Tupelo, Mississippi. I've said Tupelo so many goddamn times it's lost all meaning. 8,400 fans that were at times very electric, and then other times were like, what the fuck are we watching? This was kind of a bit of a turning point for WCW because fans were really starting to get tired of the NWO antics. They were chanting, we want Sting, we want Sting. Sting was nowhere to be found on this card. Hogan was nowhere to be found on this card. And the tagline for this was, these men do solemnly swear to kick, fight, punch, stomp, and flatten anybody who gets in their way. That was the tagline for this particular pay-per-view. So anyway, cowboy theme with Savage, DDP, and a card rundown, and then we get pyro and cheering fans. The crowd seemed like they were happy to be there. It seemed like a pretty full house. Shivani, Hina, and Dusty on commentary. They had guest commentators throughout the night. And they go over the card briefly. We then get Rey Mysterio versus Ultimo Dragon, who was the Ultimate Dragon still by this point. Still wild, I got to see him at an indie show about 3 years ago. How could this not be good? This is how you open up the pay-per-view. Mike Tenay joined commentary. Fucking terrific. Dragon works on the back. Rey eventually does take to the air, even after getting hit with a running bomb that almost went into the corner. That would have been really painful. And he did keep pulling up Rey when he seemingly had him beat, which ended up costing him. Rey did, fight back and took flight, but then we cut to Lee Marshall trying to get an interview with Kevin Nash during the match, by the way, and Six says, no, you can't talk to him. Get the hell out of here, Lee. And then we get more aerial stuff. We get a few near falls, some very good near falls, and then the springboard Hurricanrana 1, 2, 3, and Rey Mysterio gets the victory. Very good opening match. Pretty much one of the main highlights of this show that got messier as time went on. And then Scott interrupts the Nash interview because Lee Marshall is bound and determined to talk to Nash because we're going to have a Tag Team Championship match, but Hall isn't there. He's either in rehab or injured. Not exactly sure, because 1997 was a bit of a weird year for Scott Hall. I believe he would be part of Slamboree, but that was actually 6 weeks after this pay-per-view. It took place on April 6th, 1997. Very early in the year, honestly, or very early in the month. Usually a lot of pay-per-views tend to take place around, the third or fourth week, but it is what it is. So Scott Steiner tries to interrupt, and then he during the melee, attacks an official and gets maced and cuffed and taken to jail. So there you go. Now it's going to be Kevin Nash versus Rick Steiner, and oh dear, that match should have been good, and it wasn't. So Akira Hokuto took on Medusa for the WCW Women's Championship. It wasn't dull, but it was short, and Sonny Ono kept interfering. Luna Vachon runs in for her brief WCW run, kicks Medusa, and Hokuto gets the victory. And there you go. And then we're going to have Luna versus Medusa. I always forget that Luna was actually in WCW briefly. And then we get Lord Steven Regal versus Prince Iakea for the TV Championship. They really tried hard with Prince Iakea. They really tried hard. Good athlete, not really a dynamic personality. The crowd did chant Regal sucks, but they got to the point where they weren't really caring about this particular event, or this particular match. The Prince did get a cover after firing back up 1, 2, 3. Regal then attacks him afterwards. This feud will continue. Hooray. So Mean Gene plugs the hotline and brings out Flair, who talks about how he's been injured. He'll be cleared on May 1st. That the Horsemen will walk that aisle, do it Horseman style. And that Arn's upcoming surgery will go well. It doesn't, because unfortunately it would be a bit of a botched surgery, and I think also the injury is more severe than he realized. But I believe it was down to being kind of a bit of a botched surgery that caused enough issues to where he couldn't do it anymore. And that him and Piper, where do they stand? Well, they're going to team up with Kevin Green, who got a release from the Carolina Panthers, to be part of a 6-man match at Slamboree 1997. Which is something I may retro review in May. We will see. Flair says he wants Hogan. A lot of people want Hogan. Hogan is nowhere to be found on this event, by the way. Public Enemy versus Steve Mongo McMichael and Jeff Jarrett. No, dear God, who thought this was a good idea? This was 10.5 minutes on a pay-per-view broadcast that was not very good. Neither of the Public Enemy members could really work. They weren't bad, but they just resorted to the table stuff. Mongo needed people to lead him, and Jeff Jarrett would soon leave WCW and go back to WWF for a brief run, well, 2 years, and then go back to WCW and be the chosen one. So Deborah got involved. They do the separate camera views and everything. Mongo and Rocco Rock are battling by the Stagecoach stage area. Really missed the opportunity to call it the Staged Coach, but whatever, let's just roll with that. And later, the briefcase, a Halliburton, gets used on Jarrett's head, and Grunge barely covers him. 1, 2, 3. There you go. That was a match that they thought should actually be on pay-per-view. So, Mean Gene's with Harlem Heat and Sherry, and they are going to be part of the Four Corners match to determine a new number 1 contenders match. And yes, we get to hear from Sherry, and then we get to hear from Booker, who says the famous line, yes, it is this pay-per-view where this happens. I totally forgot where it was. I knew it was sometime in 96, 97, but couldn't quite remember. Hulk Hogan, we coming for you. I'm not going to say the word. They edited it and said sucka, and that's all I'm going to say. Do not type it in the comments. Do not type that word in the comments, or otherwise I will have to get rid of you, because no, we cannot have that word. But then he's looking all upset. Sherry's trying to calm him down. Don't worry, it's okay. It's on pay-per-view. That's all right. They'll be perfectly fine with that. I mean, I don't think he got fined or anything, but I can understand him being really worried. He got worked up and everything. We coming, ooh. But anyway, Dean Malenko took on Chris Benoit with woman for the U.S. Championship. Oh, boy. You know, watching Chris Benoit matches, some almost 15 years to the day. I mean, not quite. We're still a couple months away, but still almost 15 years after the tragic events happened. The horrific acts took place. This is really, really alarming to watch. Now, Malenko and Benoit could put on a technical classic, and they did for a while, and then it got messy. It got very messy. In fact, it got so goddamn messy, I'm surprised they didn't let fans come over the goddamn railing. Later, Jaqueline, thanks, Sturb, thanks. I have to say Jaqueline before saying Jacqueline. She shows up and attacks woman. Jimmy Hart shows up. Eddie's in a sling after suffering an injury, I believe, at or right after Uncensored 1997 that I also retro-reviewed. And where is woman right now? Is there anything left of her? Eerie line later. There were other lines on commentary. You can watch this match if you want and just hearing some of the lines from commentary during Benoit matches still, just with hindsight, like, oh. And I know, but just, it still horrifies me. So, Arn shows up and attacks Malenko. Kevin Sullivan shows up, uses a stick to the back of Benoit's head, the only time that he would get hit in the back of the head, except not. And the referee calls a no contest. Then Eddie is gifted the U.S. Championship, but doesn't seem like he wants it. This was messy, because they were still in the midst of doing the Benoit-Kevin Sullivan stuff, where Sullivan booked his own divorce. Kevin Nash, with Ted DiBiase in 6, took on Rick Steiner for the WCW Tag Team Championship. So earlier, Nash said that he won Nick Patrick as the ref. Nick Patrick was the NWO ref, full-fledged NWO ref. Scott Steiner was injured, or, well, jailed, and possibly injured from being maced. And Scott Hall was injured or in rehab. So the match at first was okay, but then constant interference, and then we get a low blow by Rick. We get Nick Patrick wondering what the hell is going on. The exposed buckle spot where Nash just kept doing snake eyes, snake eyes, snake eyes, and it got to the point where Nick Patrick was like, cover him. Ted DiBiase is like, what the hell are you doing? Syxx is encouraging Nash to do this stuff, fracturing in the NWO. DiBiase leaves, and then we get a jackknife for 3, and it seemed like Nick Patrick really didn't want to do the fucking count. So, oh no, Nick Patrick, after turning and joining the NWO, is now going to go back, and he's going to be bigger than ever before. Bigger what? Bigger joke? Probably. Nick Patrick wasn't a bad ref. It's just doing the heel rep thing is very dicey. Mean Gene interviews Luger and the Giant about the 4 Corners match, and then Booker T versus Stevie Ray versus Luger versus the Giant 4 Corners match to determine the #1 contender for Hulk Hogan's WCW World Heavyweight Championship. At times it was fine. It was mostly worked like a tag because you had 2 guys in the ring. They would tag their partners or tag somebody else. And would Harlem Heat go head-to-head? Would the Giant and Luger, who had been tag team partners on and off, would they go head-to-head? And at times they did. Basically, it just came down to the Giant almost having the win. And then he tags Luger, says, it's your time. Rack him. Oh! And then he racked him and got the victory. And Luger earns a WCW Championship shot at Hogan that I believe he uses on August 4th, 1997, when he beats Hogan just before Road Wild 97. And then loses it back then. Completely. I mean, it was a great pop, but it's like, good fucking grief. You were building up, whatever. It was a great pop, but it's just like you're interrupting the title reign that could have gone for 15 months. It meant something even more, because hot potato winning a championship, even for a big pop, isn't always the best thing. And that goes for any company. Slamboree 97 ad, DDP promo, he will have his revenge for Savage putting his hands on Kimberly. Randy Savage with Liz versus DDP with Kimberly. No DQ match. Michael Buffer was going to get his goddamn introduction in no matter what. He was going to get every word, every goddamn thing, and they were paying him his 75 to 100 grand per appearance fee, even when they were losing money in 99 and 2000. They lost $15 million in 99, 60 to 65 in 2000. Granted, somebody did point out that the merger cost, Turner and AOL Time Warner and all that stuff and everything, that merger cost a lot more millions, but still WCW was not going to be profitable since they pissed a lot of fans off and they got to the point where they let Russo run it, and that didn't work. So, this is the first in their epic trilogy. Savage had said DDP is going to be your last night in wrestling, and they go into the crowd backstage. Briefly, they get a full trash can. That must have smelled really goddamn good, using an actual full trash can. And with all their meticulous pre-planning, they did some really good goddamn stuff. DDP, Savage, they would always plan their shit out, and it always turned out to be really goddamn good. To me, it doesn't take away anything from any of their matches, because they always turned out so well. Some people can plan stuff, some people can do it on the fly. It is what it is. At one point, the referee got pile-driven, and Dave Penzer got slapped around because Savage is just a goddamn nutcase. It was more determined to cause violence and destroy DDP than it was about winning. He gets the ring bell, but Kimberly steals it, and then the boots off the Sky elbow. And then Savage, after pile-driving the referee, Pee Wee Anderson, Mark Curtis, we want Sting chance. They don't get Sting. The Sky Elbow. Nick Patrick shows up. And then we get a diamond cutter to a pop. And Nash is there, and he's not going to count that. Nick Patrick does 1, 2, 3. And DDP beats Randy Savage. The backstory here, of course, is they were asking Randy because he had reasonable creative control, or, because he was a big star, he could do some stuff, and said, I think I want to take the diamond cutter tonight. And he did. And DDP was a made man here. Now, granted, he was already rising. The people were getting behind him. That's why he was WCW's People's Champion. But, he obviously meant a lot to Randy. Randy meant a lot to him. And they would have 2 more matches where Randy would end up winning, but DDP came out better because Savage could work with anybody and really give him a good goddamn match, even at that stage of his career with bad knees and the fact that he was in his mid-40s. So, Nash is pissed. The NWO shows up. We want Sting chance. Jackknife to Nick Patrick. And then Savage has Kimberly. Bischoff tries to stop him. And then he shoves Bischoff. And he's going out of control. I'm going to go out on my own. So, the NWO's fracturing. And oh boy. If only they would have gone with Plan A. I'm not saying the company would have still been around. But they probably would have been seeing a better goddamn light. Anyway, agree, disagree what I said. Like, share, subscribe, Twitter handle in the description. I'm John Ritlin. I'll see you soon.